Well, welcome to another episode of Third Saturday in October, the SEC Tailgate podcast for the rest of us. Find us on social media at TSIO Pod on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And be sure to find us on YouTube as well. I'm here with my co-host, Chris. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing good, buddy. It's amazing that we're only 4 weeks away now from kickoff. We should be, I think, playing a game or two this weekend if things didn't change. But I will take it. If we get football, especially SEC football, 4 weeks from Saturday, I will be a happy man.
Absolutely, yeah. We're 4 weeks away from what we hope to be will be kickoff. We also got a couple other things on today's show. Some news around the league. Just more people talking about COVID pandemic because there's not a whole lot else to talk about right now other than social justice, which we will also get to some teams getting together to show support for social justice movements as well. So let's just get into this episode of Third Saturday in October.
Let's do it. Yeah, absolutely.
So news that you brought up to me, Chris, right before we started recording, Georgia loses wide receiver Dominic Blaylock to an injury. What do you know about that?
Well, it seems like that this is not his first leg injury. I think that he has I think it was his ACL that he tore again, and not the first time that he's hurt his knee, I believe. It's the last time he injured it as well. But out for the season again. He was one of Georgia's top wide receivers, and so it's a blow to that and blow to the Bulldogs. And just thinking back this time last year when a couple of Alabama players just weeks and days before the season started fell with some season-ending injuries, really, especially the quarterback of our defense last year, Dylan Moses, went down. And really from we were ready to just fire on all cylinders. And that was one of several dominoes that fell last season. So my heart goes out to him as an individual. I'm just dealing with that as an athlete. But also the Bulldogs of now trying to figure out what to do when somebody of that note goes down on your team. So just, we don't report a lot on injuries here, but just to know that there's a player that is being mentioned enough to where they're going to have to do some reconfiguring of what their offense is going to look like. It's just a bummer. Yeah,
well, and on top of that, they lost their quarterback, Jake Fromm, and you have to have some older leadership at wide receiver to kind of help that young quarterback along, whoever that will be for Georgia. And losing a wide receiver like that is definitely a blow. Tennessee kind of in the opposite opposite camp where we've got our quarterbacks. Not that they did a great job last year, but we lost most of our top wide receivers. So we've got guys with experience, but a new class, guys in new roles in the wide receiving core.
It is interesting. Especially those two positions. When you either lose a quarterback, you need to have some wide receivers with experience to go, it's okay, guys, we're going to get this all put together. Or if you're losing wide receivers, you need that quarterback to be able to dial in to new people. That's such a specific dynamic. So you're right. Any 11 members of your team on the field at one time all have to play together. But there is a timing that goes with the quarterback and the wide receivers specifically that you need to have those reps in. And if not, you don't need to get into a game situation before you start throwing around with some guy that you haven't, thrown the routes much with.
Yeah, especially in today's offenses. Well, I guess in offenses throughout history of passing in college football, timing is a big thing. And every receiver's timing is just a little bit different. You got to know that. So repetitions are the only way to get that. So tough blow for Georgia. Also want to touch on something that Nick Saban said about COVID, or two things that he said. One is this is about the players. If we can play in a safe way, let's play. And he has said before that he thinks the players are safer playing football than not being in organized football activities. And sometimes I think that some people, when I talk to them, think that, oh, well, the coaches and the players, they don't have to sacrifice anything, whatever. Right. But Saban had a really interesting comment when asked about the challenges of COVID-19 right now. And this is what he said: "When I go see my mother, who's 88 years old, we sit 10 feet apart on a park bench and talk for 45 minutes to an hour. I say, Mom, I'm not giving you a hug today because I love you." Mm-hmm. Everybody who says Nick Saban doesn't have a heart, eat your heart out. Because I think that really sums up what people are having to go through right now of, I love you, but I can't hug you. I can't be near you. Because I don't want to hand off something that I may not know I have. I
think that this is really indicative of something that I've been rolling my eyes and actually texting with you throughout the weeks about my anger towards some of the students, especially at Alabama. I was going to be excited that we were number one again, but not in something that I am very proud of, which is there are over 500 positive cases of COVID on the University of Alabama campus in the first few weeks of students returning. I got really angry at it. And I know that people are just wanting to have fun. Yeah. And I also know that not every University of Alabama student is a fan of the football team like I am. But if we want things to return to normal and have things that we enjoy doing, so for a college student, it's going to frat parties, it's hanging with their friends, it's being able to go in class and have that college experience, or for the diehard football fans, if you want to have those things back to normal sooner, we have to follow the rules. Even if you don't think that putting on a mask is doing anything for you or the other person, that is the mandate. And so it's essentially, regardless of what you feel about going the speed limit, there is a limit. And if you go over that, you can get pulled over. And in the sense of college students going back to campus, they have the opportunity to follow the rules, or they will have punishments that happen. And, you have over 500 positive cases just at the University of Alabama alone. What damage that can do long-term for schools getting back to normal, and also football getting back to normal. So it's aggravating, but I get it. You're a college student. You want to enjoy it. But I saw pictures last week, and we even mentioned this on the show, about just photos of students hanging out with each other, very close together, no masks on, no social distancing, and how frustrating that can be for people who want to move through this quicker and get back to normal.
Yeah, and I think that I've seen players really take some ownership in their personal health, in making sure that they are social distancing. I know Nick Saban takes it seriously. I've seen Jeremy Pruitt, and even more so the players, be vocal about, we have to do the right things so that we can play this year. I think they've got stakes in this fall, and so they want to play if at all possible. So they're going to do everything they can to make sure that happens.
Which is going back to Saban's point about it being safer within the bubble of the team all being together, because they can be observed. They can make sure that they're not leaving and going and participating in those other activities that could inadvertently spread COVID to the whole team, or to other people, or from family members to teammates, whatever it may be. That I believe that's what he's saying, that I believe they're safer with us. Yeah. Meaning I believe the student athletes are safer on campus, under the watchful eye of the coaches and the staff, to make sure that they are being responsible, and that the coaches and staff are being responsible to make it as safe as possible.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's going to be interesting because I think that teams are so focused on the task at hand, at preparing, though we're not 100% sure we're going to have a football season. There are zero distractions because they are not going to parties. They're not, from what I understand, they're not mingling with other students. They are trying to create their own bubble on campus. I think we're going to have some well-prepared players in 4 weeks for week 1. You better be well prepared for an all SEC schedule. But I think I mentioned a couple weeks ago, I went back and I watched Remember the Titans, which when it came out, I think I watched it every week. What a great movie. And I think it's very poignant for today with the social justice stuff going on. I know some people are tired of hearing about it, and I think we're just going to keep hearing about it until we see change, at least in the country, if not worldwide. But a couple things happened this week. Here on Thursday, Kentucky walked out of practice the day after the NBA teams walked out of the playoffs. The Milwaukee Brewers walked out on their game. I believe it was against the Cincinnati Reds. The Reds did the same so that neither team, or so that Milwaukee would not lose via forfeit. Other baseball teams have done the same, but just kind of showing some solidarity. There have been some other things that have gone on as well. Derek Mason, who is he? Now I'm trying to think. Is he the only black head coach in the SEC?
I believe you're right.
I believe he is. So of course this is going to hit home for him. I know lots of assistant coaches are black, but Derek Mason said he wants change, and that he's sad and tired after this Jacob Blake shooting. Mizzou's head coach Drink said, well, he was just vocal about social justice, needing something there, and I gotta hand it to Jeremy Pruitt once again. His players have really stepped up to be social justice warriors, peaceful warriors, I might add. And his players want to go march on Saturday. We talked earlier about T. Martin helping kind of lead this group of student athletes and students who want to affect social justice on campus. And there's a march organized for Saturday. So Coach Pruitt moved practice so that his players could be a part. And I see a lot of similarities with football teams right now because we're talking about them. Like the Titans in Remember the Titans, they had to come together and prove to the community, hey, we can all work together. We can have peace. We can have harmony. And I think that's what sports are trying to say right now. So I'll kind of step down from my monologue and Chris, let you just kind of weigh in on some of those things on civil rights and social justice.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's pretty interesting that people are being able to use their voices in ways that I feel like in the past, especially like on the collegiate level, that student athletes haven't had the opportunity to have their voices heard, especially in these types of conversations. And so I love that coaches are standing up for players to allow them to have a conversation and oftentimes lead the conversation. I love that coaches are supporting the players and their right to protest, their right to stand up and to say something that maybe in times past they would say, "What we're student athletes. We go out there, we play, we get a free college education as a result of it, and then let's go about our lives." But now, just 2020 being what it has been, it's been nice to see that the collegiate athlete has been able to have a voice and to stand up, I think, in ways that they haven't been able to in the past, and join other sports leagues like the NBA or the Major League Baseball, the NFL, and saying that, like, no, we want to be heard too, and we want to make a difference, like with the NBA or the Major League Baseball, of saying that, like, we're tired of this, and because of that, we're going to use our actions and our voices to try to enact change, whether that means walking off the field or not showing up for a game, to say that, like, okay, if we really want change, maybe you guys don't get to watch Major League Baseball until some people stand up and to change their minds on some things. So I applaud sports in general for being something that we come around to root, and how we love that attitude, that environment, that mentality. And then in times of social justice, to be able to stand up and to say some things that can enact change as well. Going all the way back to everybody from Jackie Robinson to Muhammad Ali to, being able to stand up and say something, it's important, and to have a platform to do it. And so to see that you can say some things that maybe in past years or decades would not have been popular, but that's what I believe, and that's what I'm going to stand up for. Good. I love that college athletes have that platform as well.
Well, and some people will say, hey, they're college athletes, sit down, shut up. Here's the problem. We worship them. And if we are going to give them that power, then they are going to try to use that power to do good in whatever way they see fit. And that's the way they see fit right now. And they're going to try to influence peace, really. Everything that I've seen coming out of Tennessee is we want people to live. We want innocent people to live. We want fair treatment for all people. Because blacks have been marginalized and just the point of the focus of injustice for so long. Let's do something about it. So
and you know what? I think that I've said this on the show before as well. When I hear coaches or commentators talk about the student athletes as kids, it rubs me a little the wrong way. I'm a generation past being in that part of my life now. And so I'm not talking about this from having some sort of hurt feelings on my own, but these same guys that play on Saturday are, if you they're 18 plus years old. And so in our society, we consider that being an adult. And so if you can go and sign up for the military and go and fight and die for our country, I think that you should be able to stand up and to have your voice be counted and heard as well. So I appreciate that. Maybe it wasn't a popular opinion in times past, but I think that moving forward, we should look at these individuals as adults that have voices that should be able to stand up and say something. And just because they're not a league that gets paid in money like the NFL or the NBA or the Major League Baseball and NHL, even though they're not supposed to be paid for their services monetarily, that doesn't mean that they shouldn't have a voice. Right. And they may not be considered professional athletes from a perspective of that happens when you go to the next league up. I still think that they're adults with opinions that should be heard.
Agreed. They're 18. They can legally make decisions like an adult. So let them state their opinions. Let's. I think we all need to be grown-ups about it. And I think that the college athletes are the ones acting the most grown up about it right now. So like in Remember the Titans, I think we need to look to our student athletes for how we can make it work. Because, man, if they can't get over racial differences, they're not going to win any football games. And that's a trivial thing in the scheme of life, but 132 college teams do it week in, week out. Why can't the rest of us make it work too? So
agreed.
it's a very heavy thing to be happening on top of a global pandemic like we haven't seen, and I don't know how long, maybe ever. But I'm so excited that there is right now college football to which we can look forward. It's 4 weeks away.
Yeah. That's the thing. Again, this 2020, I saw somebody earlier in the grocery store, and I think they had a shirt that said something like 2020, 1 star, 1 out of 5. And so I thought that was very apt. 2020 has been a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
And so the fact that we have anything to look forward to is a small glimmer of hope in what has otherwise been a really dismal year. Again, with social injustice, with COVID, it's been, even things that are hard to imagine happening in 2020, like the wildfires in Australia happened this year. We've had some massive fires in the state of California this year. This is going to go down as one of the not greatest years ever. But so to have something that we can look forward to, like college football, again, as we say every week, in an abundance of safety, and we want players and coaches and staffs, we want them to be the safest. We don't want this, like Saban was saying earlier, we want them to be safe first, but other than that, we want to play for the players. When we see teams like Ohio State, and I think that there are some other Big Ten teams that are now trying to either sue or to protest or something, we want to play. To see this, it's because that's what sports means to many of us in our society. And so to look at it and go 4 weeks away, let's do this. Let's get excited about it, because there's not a lot to get excited about in 2020. We can get excited about this.
One of my favorite memes that I saw the other day was it was 3 numbers. The first one was 13. And it was like, nobody likes me. The next one was 666. And it's like, you got nothing on me. And then it's 2020 saying something like, hold my beer. And I just thought, no kidding. It is, if 2020 is a number, it's like if 13 and 666 had a baby, look out.
That's true.
It's, and as Hurricane Laura just ripped through Louisiana, I don't want to leave that out. I mean, there's so much going on. I just hope that we as a society in the U.S. come out stronger, come out more unified with that. And, kind of as we wrap up, Chris, you want to talk about pros and cons of college football this year. Just kind of, I'll just start with kind of piggybacking off what I just said. I think some pros are this can be very unifying. Just watching teams come together, watching societies come together to support this. And also, like I was saying with Remember the Titans, sports teams showing, hey, people of different backgrounds can come together, work together in harmony, get along, be friends. I think that is why I want college football the most, is I want them to show a good example. And then, I'll let you go through your pros for
sure.
college football.
Yeah, one of the I reached out to you earlier in the week and thought it would be an interesting thing to chat about, and we would love to hear from the listeners and the watchers as well. to talk about, like, okay, again, 2020 has been horrific. And specifically COVID-19, a global pandemic that the world hasn't seen in at least 100 years. It's just, there have been a lot of negative, terrible things that have happened as a result. Industries in shambles, economies are in question, the state of the world, what we're moving forward, how safe is it, all of this. And so I wanted to just kind of think about, like, with COVID, like, so much of what we have come to know and expect in the world is now just up in the air. But in college football specifically, can we look and see that, like, there are some things that are horrible, and let's talk about those and mention them about moving forward and the dangers of what this has brought to our beloved college football. But that also, are there some good things that could have happened as a result of this? And so, mentioning what you were saying a second ago is very very interesting to look at. I was thinking also that one of the things that holds most teams back during the season is the fact that they're student athletes. And so they have to stick around their campuses because they have to go to class most of the week. And then they usually go, if they've got an away game or something like that, they usually have to go do the away game on Thursday or Friday and get there. And so they're missing part of school, which kind of makes it to where they've got a makeup situation either before they leave or after they get back. But I thought a positive of all of this is there's so many campuses that are going to virtual learning that if this is a trend that moves into the future, if the college experience is like, okay, we all like to be in person on campus, but virtual learning is something that we have to come to into 2020. We have to, like, up our game and offer this for students and student athletes moving forward. That, like, maybe if Alabama had a road game against Georgia, there's nothing saying that the team can't go on Tuesday and land in Athens and start practicing there to get used to all that. And, during the day, they're virtually going to school because everybody's used to it at this point. So I thought just a random positive is the fact that virtual schools allow more flexibility for the football teams. What are your thoughts there?
Well, when I was in college a while back, we actually kind of did a little bit of that. We broadcast a couple of our classes to a school in Hawaii. Wow. So there's a camera set up in the back of the class, and the first day of class, our professor says, hey, this is going to be broadcast to kind of our sister school, partner school in Hawaii. So there will be some of that. It was more of a lecture type thing, but it was the groundwork for what we're doing now, I believe. So I think it worked. I mean, that happened for a couple years, so I know that after year one, hey, they liked it, so let's do it again. And if it's, I think there's some life lessons to be learned too, just adaptability. And so many of us are going to be working like this in the future, even when things do get back to normal, that it's just another skill that we're going to have being able to work remotely. So I agree. That's going to be, I think, a progression in education.
Sure. Yeah, I think, though, on the negative side of that is that there are a lot of colleges and universities these days that are now questioning what their future is going to look like as a college or university. Because if students' parents who are paying for the students' education in many cases, if they're starting to realize that, like, I'm sending my son or daughter off to this school for most of the year and having to pay for their food and their housing and all of this, but they can have the same education and sit in my house and I don't have to pay all this other stuff. Why would I need to send them to these other places? And so maybe larger universities, I would assume that most schools within the Southeastern Conference probably wouldn't have this negative effect as much as some smaller schools. But there is the potential of, if things go virtual and become the norm, then what happens to these kind of more, these smaller, more niche schools out there that do exist for a purpose and do have a student population, but what's that going to look like moving forward if it goes all virtual?
Right. It's going to be interesting to see how they do things like team projects.
Yeah.
Because team projects working virtually are not easy. They're
No.
not easy in person either. But it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I'm glad that I'm not a decision maker in any of those fields right now. So,
Yeah.
Some of the cons that I had is just the thought of no sports. I think people were getting a little antsy. We need distractions at this time.
Yeah.
But we also don't want to put anybody in danger. So it's a tough thing to balance. But I thought for the players, the NCAA has said, hey, this year does not count against any of your eligibility.
Yeah.
For somebody like Trevor Lawrence, who is projected to be a number 1 draft pick, even as a freshman, it's like, hey, he could have battled Joe Burrow for the number 1 pick overall. He's really just waiting until he's old enough to be drafted. I think we've talked about there are people saying he should just sit it out and just work out and he'd be fine. I don't know how much it's going to help players. Football players, by the time they're junior, they've already completed their 4-year degree.
Yeah.
Just based on all the summer classes and mini masters and all that. So for the Big Ten players, are seniors going to want to go through their senior year again?
Yeah.
I don't know. And there's no guarantee that next year will be any better. Not to be a Debbie Downer, but I think the biggest con is for these players who especially are not going to get to play at the NFL level. It's kind of stumbling to the finish line.
Sure. Yeah. I also thought about a negative would be just college life in general. That's such a specific time in a person's life. And if they choose to go the route of going to a major 4-year university like those in the SEC, it's such a unique experience that you want to have. I remember growing up, I couldn't wait to get to college, to think about all the things that I could do as a college student and all the late night hangouts and chicken wing eating contests and,
yes.
Trying to figure out a way to pass my classes, but not really go that much or study that hard. Just those things that you do, whether you're trying to pledge for a fraternity or a sorority, or you're really into intramural sports, or you go to the university of your favorite football team because in the fall you want to support them and go to every game and tailgate and do all of that. That is in question. Like right now, there's no tailgating this year. Right now, the capacity for, I think, Alabama, if not the whole of the SEC, is 20%. And that could change to 0% in the stands, depending on what things look like as the season gets started. So that college life experience, again, going back to the virtual schooling, that's just not the same. And I'm not one to say that all things need to always remain the same. I'm absolutely for change, and especially using technology, especially in areas of social inequality and social justice. I like things moving forward, but there are going to be some things like a cool frat party right before the tailgate, right before the game, back to a frat party kind of experience that you may not have if you're going to your favorite university from the comfort of your home, wherever your high school was in your hometown. So,
yeah, and Tennessee did announce this week that they will allow tailgating this year. It's not going to look anything like what we know tailgating to be. Very limited. You can only tailgate with people with whom you're going to sit in the stadium. So you can't tailgate with people sitting on the opposite side of the stadium. Things like that it's just going to be different.
Yeah.
But you know what? For now, we've got it.
We got it, baby.
Let's just hang on to that hope. As they say, Remember the Titans, hang on to that ball, PD. Because if I think right now the SEC at least has a plan for how to take care of their players and coaches. Let's just see if we can get through these next 4 weeks, get to kickoff, and see what happens.
I'm excited. I'm stoked. I'm excited about the possibility of the season actually happening. I'm excited about some of the things that you and I have in store for a third Saturday in October, and our fans and our listeners. So stay tuned for following weeks. We have a football season at this point, and I'm so glad that we do a podcast about SEC football, and the SEC is one of the conferences that looks like they are going to move forward and play some games this fall. So let's keep rooting, and we'll do it again next week, man.
Absolutely. Chris, until next week, roll Vols.
Roll Vols, baby.